Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Today we are discussing Memories of Murder. Memories of Murder, a 2003 South Korean crime drama film, co-written and directed by Bong Joon-ho. It is based on the true story of Korea's first serial murders in history, which took place between 1986 and 1991 in Gyeongsang, Gyeonggi Province. And so I apologize up front. I do not know any South Korean, and so I'm going to absolutely butcher the names of these actors, actresses, and places. So I just want to give that fair warning. I apologize. So this movie stars Song Kang-ho and Kim Sang-kyung as Detective Park and Detective Seo, respectively, two of the detectives trying to solve the crimes. So here is the synopsis real quick. South Korea in 1986, under the military dictatorship, two rural cops and a special detective from the capital investigate a series of brutal rape and murder cases. Their crude measures become more desperate with each new corpse found, based on a true story. So I've had a series of people that have talked to me over YouTube and comments and questions and whatnot, saying, we know that you loved Bong Joon-ho's Academy Award-winning, Best Picture Award-winning, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, all of the awards. Give him all of the awards for Parasite, but everyone was telling me to go back and rewatch Memories of Murder. I keep wanting to say Memories of a Murderer, but it's Memories of Murder. Solin Kim actually was one of the people that told me to check it out as well. I don't have the full list of people that told me to look at Parasite, but thank you all. They're all in the comment section. But yes, so Memories of Murder, I finally got to see it. It's actually available in the US on YouTube. I had no idea that it was even available for YouTube. So I was like, oh shit, I gotta watch it before they even take it down or what's going on. But depending on where you live, you might be able to watch Memories of Murder for free on YouTube. So and it's not with any subscriptions or anything like that. It's on there. So I'll put the link for what I watched it on, and if anyone wants to watch Memories of Murder and catch up on Bong Joon-ho's second directorial feature, then yeah, I'll leave the link for Memories of Murder and the way I watched it in the description. So let me find my notes real quick. Okay, so Memories of Murder is the third film I've seen of Bong Joon-ho's. I did somewhat of a small wrap up while we were discussing Parasite, and I realized that I needed to check out this director's previous work. And so most people agreed that Memories of Murder, written and directed by him, co-written by him, based off the stage play by Kwang Rim Kim and Sung Bo Shim, also are credited writers on this movie as well. This movie also stars Kang Ho Song, who we recognize the most for being on tons of other American movies, but also South Korean movies. We have movies such as what just came out was Parasite. He plays the father in that. Snowpiercer, we definitely remember him in that. That was also directed by Bong Joon-ho as well. We've seen him in comedies and American comedies such as The Interview with James Franco and Seth Rogen. So we've seen this guy act for, I don't know, numerous years. The majority of stuff I think he's been in is mostly South Korean. He was in The Host. That's definitely on my list after watching this. King Hong Song has an extremely expressive face, and so it's always good to see him in anything, not just Bong Joon-ho directed, but he's a great actor as well. Sang Kyung Kim, like I said, I'm sorry about the names. I'm sorry I'm fucking them up, but I'm trying. Sang Kyung Kim, Detective Se Tae Yeon. He plays kind of this new guy. He's the new guy that's joining the task force to figure out who is committing these murders. And so I really like this guy's understated performance. Interesting actor. I haven't seen him on anything that I'm aware of, and I can't pronounce any of the movies that he's been on, so I'm not going to attempt to do anything to try to pronounce these at this moment. But he's a great actor as Detective Seo. Ro Ha Kim as Detective Cho Yong Ko. This dude's the heavyweight. This the good guy, good cop, bad cop. We found our bad cop. I mean, they're not great cops in this movie, but this is definitely the worst of the worst. And so, Detective Cho Yong Ko, and for better or worse, was kind of a badass. Jae Ho Song is the detective, lead detective or sergeant, sorry, playing Shin Dong Chul, and I liked his performance. He was great. Nothing too outstanding or anything about that. And Sei Hai Ko was the officer Kwan Ki Ok, and so this is basically our core cast of individuals who are in the police station and who we're following the entire time. So here's a couple of pros I really found from watching Memories of a Murder. Pros, just like the majority of Bong Joon-ho's work that I've realized, whether we're watching Snowpiercer, whether we're watching The Host, and I've only seen a little bit of The Host, so I need to go back and watch that, but or watching Memories of a Murder or Parasite or any of his work, it's unpredictable. Bong Joon-ho has a directorial and writing style that always seems to kind of have this layer of mystery where we're always finding out something new and learning interesting, I don't know, for this it'd be clues or facts or things that we need to pick up as viewers. The writing is just as smooth as the unpredictability of this story. Given that it's based on a true story, I'm sure some people might have heard or seen a little bit about this, but overall, I thought the predictability in this movie was amazing, and that also correlated with the writing. The direction, it's very smooth. It kind of eases you into these crimes as to what's going on. Bong Joon-ho on his second movie is very impressive, given that he only had a couple shorts under his belt before this. The acting, I know some of these actors had been in the game a little bit longer than others, such as King Hong Song. I don't have where this is on his list of. I think he had he had been in several roles before he was the detective Park Dumon, and so the majority of the acting obviously is pretty phenomenal. No complaints there. Interesting framing and blocking. I thought for the second movie of Bong Joon-ho, I was pretty impressed with how detailed the framing was, just in how he framed some of these interviews with people going down. It was extremely intense. I mean, the pacing in this, I think, is what really works, in my opinion. And I think that also lends to these interesting shots and the cinematography that feels kind of moody and dour, but also has these really stunning shots. The cons. So this is where South Korea is going to be like, all right, that's it. We don't know about you now. But give me a second. I wouldn't say this movie particularly has cons. It might have been the format I was watching it on as well. I'm sure it being on YouTube does not give me the ultimate 4K quality, high quality resolution and everything I need on there. But I will say, for it being a 2003 movie, the quality is all in the direction and I can definitely feel some of the color pulled away from the movie, and I'm not exactly sure if that's from the color palette or if that's from the way that I was watching it on YouTube or what. It could have been a combination of both. Just that it's been 17 years plus. We don't have the same technology anymore. Things get better. Things look better. So I will say, with the exception of a couple scenes in spoiler section, I'll mention, but the color is drained from the movie in a way, but makes certain aspects of it really pop. So it's not exactly a con in my opinion. It was just something I noticed. The moody dourness of the film is definitely there, but there's this red lining, this tint of red that is always striking throughout the majority of the movie. So I just wanted to note that. I don't necessarily think it's a con. It's just something I noted. The editing, for better or worse, this has a very classic style of editing. I wouldn't say anything's too fancy about it. It's not quite like Star Wars where you're gonna have a wipe or something like that. But I will say the editing is a lot of kind of I want to say classical editing, kind of like fades to black. A lot of times, just instead of doing like a hard cut or something like that. So, like I said, it's not a con. There's not really much about this movie that I would say is a con, because the majority of the movie, I'd say, is extremely well put together. It's a mystery that you want to unravel with everyone. And once again, Bong Joon-ho has me watching a movie with subtitles and forgetting I'm even watching subtitles. So that's the sign of a good movie that just, entrances you in the world. And so let me hop into the spoiler section for Memories of Murder. So we are in Memories of Murder spoiler section. Wow, this was done on a pretty low budget. I normally like to mention the budget. 2.8 million. And it did not gross terribly that much worldwide. It says only 500,000 worldwide. I wonder if this was a soft release or if it wasn't a wide release, or what happened with this. But at 2 hours and 11 minutes, like I said, the pacing in this I think is really excellent in the way that it's presented. I never felt like I was sitting there for 2 hours. And one thing I liked about this movie is that there aren't just flat out good guys and bad guys. Since we're in the spoiler section, we're going to talk about the two main detectives and then the new investigator that join along with them. The two main guys, normally we're following guys that are pretty well liked in situations like this. The good cop, bad cop, maybe one's a little bit more brooding than the other. But holy shit, these guys fucking will whoop some ass. Like, they're to the point where they're abusive. Detective Park Dumon and Detective Seo Taeyeon, they are... Oh, sorry, Detective Cho Young at the beginning and Detective Park. Yeah, they are not messing around. They really try to start the movie off as if the main guy is kind of the smart, intuitive one, which would be Detective Park. But, I mean, honestly, is he putting on a front? Is he really that smart? Because a lot of this movie feels like they are just trying to fit the mold of these poor innocent people they're taking in, and almost basically torturing them to the point where they're describing the crimes they didn't commit. And so it's like, holy fuck. That was not what I was expecting in this movie. I thought it was going to be a straight out, kind of Zodiac-ish, go find the killer, all this crazy shit's happening, or Seven, or any of those movies that have to do with finding the killer. So the main guy is played off as he's intuitive, but really the majority of the time I would say that's kind of up to question. He's a smart guy. He doesn't like to do the ass whooping all the time, but he will if he has to. His looks like his wife is a nurse. We find out that the Bark family had a meat restaurant, and they had a son that was quote unquote slow, and he liked to follow the most recent victim. And we find out eventually that this guy is giving, the slower son is being taken underground to this like cellar of the basement or whatever, and you can tell he's being kind of slapped around. I mean, his clothes are stripped. He doesn't have a lawyer. I'm like, where the fuck are these guys' rights? Like, what is going on in South Korea where you can just take people down and get them their ass beat? Like, having to watch this guy with this mental health condition, or I don't know if it's considered a mental health condition, or slight retardation or whatever he had, see him get beaten up by our main quote unquote protagonist, is hard to watch. Like, I was like, this is not what I was expecting at all. And you can kind of see it's not flat out immediately shown that he's just getting his ass kicked, that the boy is getting his ass kicked. It is it's kind of just like, it looks like they're just picking on him, slapping him a little bit on the knee, and whacking him with pieces of clothing and stuff like that. And you can hear them trying to rehearse the confession with him. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is not good. Especially with the fact is, with the new investigator coming in, he straight up says, what if you take one of these guys in, the real killer is still out there and can still commit the crimes. So it's just, it's bad for everybody. Basically, instead of good cop, bad cop, it's bad cop, bad cop. So it's straight up police brutality. And then, holy shit, I think when the inspector first gets there, the new guy, he's like wandering around smoking or something, I think trying to help some lady. He gets a straight up double flying kick to the chest, something that happens I think like 3 or 4 times throughout this movie, which is not what I was expecting. Seeing a grown-ass man do these flying, like not only is it a flying kick or a flying knee, not like some John Jones UFC shit, I'm talking flying. He goes full on horizontal flying at like 20 miles per hour at this guy. I'm like, holy fuck, getting like kicked in the chest with both feet from the guy, only for the other guy to just fall on his ass while he's doing it. I mean, that is intense. I mean, what is going on in Korea? I like, instead of like in America or the States, where it's normally a quote unquote good old fashioned ass whooping with fist to fist combat, but straight up in Korea, Bong Joon-ho makes it seem like everybody knows like how to do a flying knee or kickboxing or something. I'm just like, holy shit. But that first one came out of nowhere. I was like, holy fuck. I was like, holy shit. So I honestly wanted to see some more ass whoopings with that. And then we find out the main cops planted evidence using the evidence from the I don't want to call him the slow guy. I want to call him the name that he's given. Kwang Ho? Is his name Kwang Ho? Let me see. Yeah, I think his name's Kwang Ho. And No Sheik Park is the actor who plays Bang Kwang Ho. And I was very impressed with this guy's acting. I don't think he actually is got retardation or whatever the symptoms called, but this actor was very good. I felt so bad for him, seeing that he's just being tortured by these cops and eventually framed by the cops, and then he has to go out there and reenact in front of the cops. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was in having like thousands of people watch. It was intense. And so we also see what happens to the citizens. They have to turn off. They have these blackouts that eventually come in later in the film. It's the blackouts almost don't benefit the people. It's almost like making it easier for the guy to get away with the murder or something like that. I don't know. It didn't seem like they were benefiting the people. Let's see. So the father at the reenactment of the murder with Kang Ho, they he's the one like running in front of people, all of the thousands of people, reporters and everybody talking about, are you torturing my son? There is very much this essence throughout the entire movie that police brutality is very widely known. I thought that was actually brave of the father to say that. I was like, and I was curious if it was going to come back to bite the cops in the ass, and it's something they have to deal with the entire time they're there. Let me see. Are chopsticks breaking in Korea a running joke there? Because I felt like there was a little side joke that they were in, I don't know, a restaurant and getting ready to eat, and they just like, fuck. Didn't know if that was a South Korean run-on joke or something. Look at at one point there is a shot of, I think it's the sergeant looking at the two clips of I think it's the first one is them getting recognition for obtaining Kwang Ho, and it's all of the cops lined up, and then the second part of the newspaper article on the other side is the shit show when they're trying to do the reenactment, and the father's going out there asking about police brutality, and the juxtaposition in between those two newspapers clips and articles are pretty powerful, and it just, you can see the look of disdain on the inspector's face. Sorry, the sergeant's face. There's also a third body, and we find out that rainy days and red dresses have something to do with it, and possibly this music. They are showing the dead body at one point, and then they do this editing, or Bong Joon-ho does this editing to meat being cooked, and I just felt like, oh, this is a cold way to edit. And Sung Min Kim, the same editor as the host, is his editor on this movie. So let me see. They bought what is his name? Kwang Ho? Damn it. Kwang Ho. They bought Kwang Ho some fresh new Niceys instead of Nikes. I was like, damn it. Couldn't even get him the real stuff. And there's this short scene of the Detective Park talking about how Korean detectives have much less land to cover than Americans do, which I didn't quite understand his disdain for it. I mean, there definitely is much more land over here, but does that mean there's more murders and therefore more cops? Therefore, I didn't really understand what his ultimate gripe with the FBI and Americans, because it felt like the new inspector, when he came in from, I don't remember where the new inspector came from. I think they said he came from the Capitol, but he was educated in English and knew a lot of American history, I guess. They kind of gave him shit for all of that. I mean, the Detective Park has a slight disdain for the states. I thought it was insane that the cops end up grabbing that one lady in the street, and they decide to use her as bait, dressing her up in a red dress, and I was like, this is insane. I can't believe that Bong is having us root for these people. It's just bewildering to me. I think they try to find out that the main guy is relatively clean shaven, and so they talk about him being hairless and not leaving any traces. So there's this one part where Detective Park is looking at everybody. Let me see. Oh yeah, they talk about the guy possibly being hairless. There's a song that plays at the same time as the murders. And before Detective Park goes out and starts to look at dudes' genitals to see if they're bald or not. I did notice that I didn't think they treated Officer Kwan Ki-ok with respect, because I think she was the one that was the officer that pointed out that the song came on at the same times during the murders. Which, I'm curious, is that something that really happened? And they actually did pull somebody in that was sending in letters saying to play the certain song or at certain times? I got a lot of questions about that, because I feel like there's... I also got questions. Was Baek Kwang Ho was that guy a real guy, and did he really get killed by a train? Like, if this is based on a true story, that's pretty insane, because the one guy that saw the killer is actually killed. That's pretty intense. Let me see. They start doing excessive amounts of, looking around for this murderer. They even go as far as going to a fortune teller and getting some sort of charm, and you got to get the murder dirt and throw it on there, and it ends up taking them back to the scene where everything was happening, or where one of the scenes was happening, the crime scenes, and they find out there's this crazy dude jerking off on women's clothes. And he has fucking red undies. Like, what the fuck is going on with that? And I love this little chase that happens when we're finding this guy. I mean, it is a fucking chase. And I love the choreography of all of them running at the same time. And then going to this big construction zone where only to find him bent over and you can see his red undies, which give him away. Only to hit him with another flying kick. Detective, what was his name? Cho or something? What was it? Yeah, Detective Cho had to hit him with a flying kick. Straight to the chest. Let me see. We go to the Red Panties guy's family's house. We find out that it's fucking gross, filled with bugs. He has a sick wife. That's fucking disgusting. It's detailed though, and they talk about how good of a guy this guy actually is. And there's a subtle shot of the second cop, Detective Cho, putting on the shoe cloth, which we saw the shoe cloth originally being put on when they were going to beat the first guy they brought in, Baek Kwang Ho. They were, he says, I put this on so I don't scuff up when I kick your ass. And so we know there's only just a subtle shot of Detective Cho putting that on, and the ass is about to get whooped. So I love that shot, and it's subtle but great filmmaking. This is an intense description of the victim that we find from one of the it's a description of a victim. We find out what happened to one of the ladies that got away. The killer's hands were soft. He used the same methods. And overall, it feels like the two main cops are so busy trying to pin the crime on the people that are being tortured that they're just bringing in randomly saying, you did it. That they aren't really willing to go outside of what's really happening in the crime. So we have the song, we have the rain, we have the fight. It was the fight between all three of the cops and the new guy, the other detective. And while all this is going down, the song plays on the radio, and then one of them goes outside and puts his hand out and realizes it's raining, and they all realize they got to go on blackout mode. Everyone's got to go on blackout mode, and so while all this is going down, the killer is out there getting ready to strike next, and he actually almost strikes one of the cops' wives, but ends up striking one of the girls that one of the cops had already talked to, which made me think that he was involved somehow within the police operation of. I mean, how would he know to attack this girl or the wife? You know, the girl that went to school or the wife of the cop. There's just a lot of questions I have regarding that. The population knows that they're torturing people when they bring in this one guy that they find out who's requested all of the songs. That works at this factory. He's a calm, collective, okay looking, I guess, soft-handed dude, I guess, if that makes sense. Because they check his hands, make sure if they're rough or not. They're soft. He seems like a kind of a weirdo, so they're just like kind of immediately assume it's him. They send his DNA to the States to get tested with some semen samples that had found on the scene. And, of course, during this entire operation and all that's happening, Detective Cho hits him with another flying kick. Every single one of the guys gets hit with a flying kick in this movie. I just couldn't get over that. Like, the first thing you do is throw a kick. Like, the thing why I find it funny is because most people in America or in the States are not that flexible, especially like men over like 30. If they're not going to the gym all the time, they're not going to be throwing no flying kicks. They're going to be ripping their pants. They're going to be like pulling something in their groin or something, or like it's not going to end well with a flying kick in the States. So if Korea comes over here, just know y'all can probably disable us with a flying knee or a flying kick. That's how you defeat us. And so they end up going back to flying Kwang again, back Kwang Ho, the kid that was put in the fire. We find out he was thrown in the fire at a very young age. So not only was he slow, they threw their slow son into the fire. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? That family just needs, I don't know. And then, of course, he gets killed by a train. The only guy that says that he's seen the killer 3 times. I found that just a tad bit predictable in a way. I'm not going to say it's a complaint, but if that's what happened with the true story, I can't really complain about that. It's just what happened. But if it didn't, I would say it was a little bit on the nose and a little bit like, hey, the only guy that knows the killer, might, we can't let anything happen to him, otherwise, oh, and he's dead. It's like, oh, damn it. So it's ironic, I guess, is what it is. Let's see. We find out Detective Cho is not going to be delivering any more flying knees or flying kicks in the chest. He's going to have his leg amputated due to the nail that went into it from Baek Kwang-ho. Let me see. And it's hard to feel bad for that guy because that dude, he says, I think there's like a television shot that's talking about him at one point, and it's talking about like police brutality, sexual assault. Like, this guy's not a good guy. Lights off, the blackout scene with her in the woods. This is with the student in the woods with one of the last victims. Another beautifully terrifying scene. She and the killer are right in the center of the middle, and you see all these lights in the fair distance just turning off. knowing that they're protected, but she's exactly in the opposite place. And the more that they're trying to protect themselves, the less protection she has. The killer is putting things in the victim. I guess, is this called like sodomizing victims? Is it when you put things into the victims? Like, it's really fucked up. And they talked about, there was one part where they were describing the pieces of a peach, I think, that the killer put into the victims, and they were describing it to one of the accusers, the last accuser they were talking to. They said, you put 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, and the guy wasn't saying it, but the cop was, and I felt like the cop was giving away way too much information in regards to what had happened to the corpse. They should have let the guy give way more of the information. Let's see. The cops want to find a murderer so bad that they are absolutely frustrated. They're willing to go to some crazy lengths at this point. Both cops are beating the guy next to... the inspector... where is it? Inspector Detective Say Taeyeon is getting ready to beat the main accused guy, and I can't find his name at this point, but the main accused guy, the quote-unquote handsome, soft-handed guy, and as he's doing it, Detective Park is walking up to him. They're on train tracks, and he hands him these papers, and he's like, take a look at the papers. And as he gives him the papers, he just turns around and starts whooping the guy's ass again. Like the other guy, the detective that just came up, starts whooping the guy's ass. And so basically they conclude that the stuff that happened in the U.S., all the DNA is found that it is not his DNA. He did not do it. And so, since he didn't do it, they are just at their wits' end, and they need someone to take it out on. So, after a big struggle between the two detectives, they end up getting separated by a train that is flying through them, and the accused guy is held. Sorry, right before all this is happening, he's almost held at gunpoint, and Detective Park is actually the one that is telling Detective Say not to do it. And I actually was expecting Detective Say to be the one that was restrained, and Detective Park and Cho to be the ones that were going to want to, take out the real revenge. But it actually kind of flipped it on its head. Detective Say had it up to his wit's end. He just wanted to take somebody out. And so, great framing, a great scene, just this entire wrap up with all these three individuals. The acting is phenomenal. Detective Say actually does try to shoot him after the train goes by, and Park throws his hand up and pushes it out of the way. But it's a pretty powerful scene. So they flash forward to 2003, and there's this young girl that said this guy, looking plain and ordinary, I guess showed back up at the scene of one of the original crimes. And so the look of, resolution, or the look of appeal, or the look that Detective Park gives at the very end of this movie is very powerful. It says so much, but it also says there's a whole nother, part of the mystery that is going to happen, and that he has to continue on, even though it's years and years after. I think it's over 10 years after. He's still looking for the serial killer, but he has someone right here that might be able to help. So there is hope. And I think that's something that is interesting about Bong Joon-ho's work, is Despite some of the bleakness here and there, the beautiful cinematography, the unpredictability about it is that he's always, no matter what's going on, able to inject a little bit of hope. So I gave this an 8 out of 10 with just some amazing storytelling. I can't believe this is his second movie. I'm obviously going to have to go check out more of Bong Joon-ho's work. I'm so glad I got to see Memories of Murder. And once again, I will leave the link in the description, everyone. So if you are in, I guess, the States, I'm not really sure if this is restricted in certain places, but I watched it for free. I didn't sign up for anything. There was no commercials. And it looked great. It was on YouTube, and it says it's been on there for over 4 years now. So hopefully you can get it wherever you are located. And yeah, thank you for listening to Memories of Murder, 2003, directed by Bong Joon-ho. Check out the rest of the LuckyDog podcast coming down the tube. We just checked out Birds of Prey. We checked out an old classic I like. It's not really old. Inception 2010 coming down the tube. HBO has an amazing crime series written by Stephen King, or based off of Stephen King, The Outsider. We are covering that as well. Ad Astra 2019 is also available, and the Aftercast. If anyone likes the Lucky Dog podcast and wants to hear just some behind the scenes information, what's going on, what everyone's up to, check out the Aftercast. Thank you for listening, watching Lucky Dog podcast, supporting. Comments, questions, concerns, email the LuckyDogPodcast@gmail.com, Twitter, Lucky Dog Podcast, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Discord. Links are all in the description. To support the podcast, paypal.me/the Lucky Dog Podcast. We could not have this podcast running without you, the people around the world. So thank you for listening to the Lucky Dog Podcast. Let me know what you thought of Memories of Murder. Let me know what you thought of Bong Joon-ho's most recent feature, Parasite. I'll actually link the Parasite podcast in the description as well. So if you haven't heard that, be sure to check that out as well. If you like these podcasts and want to hear them early before they're dropped, generally on Tuesdays, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll have all of the Lucky Dog podcast early. So thank you for listening to the Lucky Dog Podcast, and take it easy. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to the composer Teru Iwashiro. I really was impressed by this moody score we had during this. I don't know if I got to mention that, so I just wanted to do a quick mention and shout out to the score. Thank you.